The press room was a cauldron of anticipation, its air thick with the weight of unspoken expectations. Rows of reporters, their notebooks open and pens poised, sat beneath the glare of cold white lights. Camera lenses gleamed, capturing every flicker of movement, every subtle shift in posture. The atmosphere was taut, like a bowstring drawn to its limit, ready to release. At the center of it all stood Caroline Leavitt, a 27-year-old spokesperson for the Trump administration, her presence commanding despite her youth. Across from her, in the front row, sat Caitlin Collins, CNN's seasoned reporter, her notebook thick with questions and her smile tinged with quiet challenge. What unfolded was not just a press briefing, but a clash of intellects, a public duel that would ripple far beyond the room's walls. Leavitt stepped to the podium, her neutral-colored suit crisp and elegant, but it was not her appearance that silenced the room. It was the icy confidence she exuded, a controlled energy that seemed to hum beneath her calm exterior. "Thank you for being here," she began, her voice brief and precise, each word a measured strike. "National security is our top priority, and I'm here to clarify any doubts." The room held its breath. Reporters adjusted their microphones, their eyes locked on her, sensing that any moment could tip into history. Leavitt's gaze swept the sea of faces, pausing briefly on Collins, whose reputation for incisive questions preceded her. With a slight tilt of her head and a tone laced with polite sarcasm, Leavitt said, "Caitlin, CNN, always so enthusiastic about chasing a story, aren't they?" A ripple of soft chuckles broke the silence, but no one dared breathe too loudly. All eyes turned to Collins, the room poised on the edge of a standoff. Collins rose, her movements deliberate, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Miss Leavitt, regarding the signal message leak, the press is calling SignalGate. What has the administration done to address it? Or is President Trump trying to cover up critical information related to national security?" The question was a direct jab, aimed at the administration's perceived vulnerabilities. Reporters leaned forward, pens scratching, their curiosity glinting as they awaited Leavitt's response. Leavitt didn't flinch. Her lips curved into a cold smile, her voice steady and low. "Thank you for the question, Caitlin," she said, letting the name linger. "But first, let's clarify. The so-called SignalGate that CNN loves to hype is a matter that's been transparently investigated. I'm here to provide facts, not rumors." She paused, her words sinking into the room like stones into still water. "The Department of Homeland Security and FBI have completed their review. The conclusion: no evidence of a leak that compromised national security. That report was sent to Congress last week. Has CNN read it? Or do you prefer chasing sensational headlines?" The room buzzed with murmurs. A Newsmax reporter nodded, scribbling furiously. Collins, unfazed, fired back, her voice rising. "Miss Leavitt, that report doesn't explain why signal messages were leaked from within the administration. Is the president being undermined by his own advisors? Who's accountable?" The question, wrapped in a new layer, was designed to corner Leavitt, to expose cracks in the administration's unity. Leavitt tilted her head, her eyes flashing with cunning. "The signal messages you're referring to were routine internal communications, containing no classified information. The leak, a low-level staffer who violated protocol, has been suspended. The administration made this clear in a press release. If CNN wants to hunt for traitors, I suggest reading the documents before asking." Her emphasis on the last word drew chuckles from a few reporters. Collins gripped her microphone tightly, her eyes flashing with frustration, but she pressed on. "Miss Leavitt, you're dodging. If there's nothing to hide, why hasn't the administration released all the messages? Americans have a right to know the truth." Leavitt stood taller, her voice slow but sharp as a scalpel. "Caitlin, you talk about truth, but it seems CNN just wants to stir up drama. Releasing irrelevant internal messages would create misinformation chaos, something America's enemies would love. Do you know the consequences of leaking false information? Last year, a similar incident forced the military to adjust plans in the Middle East, costing millions. This administration protects national security, not plays tabloid games." She paused, her gaze locked on Collins. "If you want the truth, ask about the measures we're taking to enhance security. Or is CNN only capable of repeating the same question?" The room erupted. A Fox News reporter clapped, while others whispered excitedly. Collins tried to interject, her voice urgent. "Miss Leavitt, you still haven't answered. The public deserves transparency." But Leavitt raised her hand, her tone icy. "Caitlin, I've answered 3 times. If you didn't hear, I suggest reviewing the tape. Who's next?" The remark was a slashing blow, leaving Collins frozen, her microphone still in hand, but her words silenced. A Newsmax reporter raised a hand, but all eyes remained on Collins, who scribbled furiously, her expression wavering between anger and confusion. Leavitt stood firm, a faint smile on her lips, as if she'd just knocked out an opponent in the ring. The cameras flashed, capturing a moment that would be dissected for days. The press room's atmosphere crackled, but Leavitt remained in control, ready for the next challenge. Collins, though still seated, was plotting her next move, her jaw tight, her fingers tapping her notebook. Leavitt tilted her head slightly, her voice smooth but laced with challenge. "What's the next question?" The invitation was a blade, delivered with precision. Collins stood, her face calm, but her eyes burning with determination. "Miss Leavitt, let's talk about the administration's deportation policy. An El Salvadoran citizen, allegedly tied to MS-13, was deported, but many argue it was a mistake. How does the administration take responsibility, and how will it address diplomatic tensions with El Salvador?" The question was a bullet, aimed at a potential weakness in the administration's immigration policy. Reporters leaned forward, sensing a chance for Leavitt to falter. But she didn't. She pursed her lips, her eyes flickering with a subtle smile. "Responsibility, Miss Collins?" "Let's start with the facts," she said, her voice low but cutting. "This individual was legally deported, confirmed by 2 immigration courts. He was an MS-13 member, a gang responsible for over 1,200 murders in the U.S. since 2010, per the FBI. A mistake? Hardly. The mistake would have been letting him stay." Murmurs spread, mixed with applause from a conservative reporter. Collins, undeterred, fired back. "Miss Leavitt, the issue isn't just legality, it's the process. Reports suggest paperwork errors led to this deportation. Doesn't that expose systemic flaws? And El Salvador has protested. How will the administration handle it?" The question reframed the issue, aiming to trap Leavitt in a bureaucratic corner. Leavitt raised an eyebrow, her tone lightly mocking. "Miss Collins, you're digging a bit too deep. The paperwork error story is fabricated. the Supreme Court confirmed the deportation followed protocol. As for El Salvador, they have the right to manage their citizens, just as we protect Americans. We've offered logistical support if they want him back. But let's be clear, MS-13 has no place here. Are you arguing for their freedom on American soil? The counter-question was a sharp arrow, aimed at Collins's moral stance. Collins gripped her microphone, her knuckles whitening. "Miss Leavitt, you're deflect testy," she shot back. "The question is about accountability for errors, not MS-13's crimes. If the process failed, how will the administration fix it to avoid harming the innocent?" The focus on errors was deliberate, a tactic to pin Leavitt down. Leavitt stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on the podium, her voice blending authority with disdain. "The innocent, Miss Collins? Let's talk about them. MS-13 has killed 87 children in the U.S. since 2015. Children, not paperwork. Our process isn't perfect, but it protects Americans, not criminals. We've streamlined deportations, cutting processing time by 30%, ensuring fewer errors. If you're worried about harm, why does CNN keep circling back to defending a system that lets criminals slip through?" Her words were a hammer, turning Collins's question into a weapon against her. An OAN reporter clapped openly, while others exchanged stunned glances. Collins's composure cracked, her face stiffening. She opened her mouth to respond, but Leavitt raised her hand, her voice ice-cold. "Hold on, Miss Collins. You've asked the same question twice, just rephrased. I answered with data, court rulings, and facts. If you're looking for drama, you're in the wrong room." The statement was a dagger, leaving no room for rebuttal. Collins froze, scribbling hastily, her movements betraying anger. The room held its breath, the silence heavy under Leavitt's dominance. Cameras panned, capturing the moment. Leavitt resolute, Collins momentarily disoriented. Conservative reporters exchanged glances, while liberal ones frowned in discomfort. Leavitt didn't pause to savor the victory. "Who's next?" she asked, her voice calm but commanding, as if the clash was just a warm-up. Collins, though, hadn't given up. Her hands clasped tightly, her eyes glinted with resilience. Leavitt scanned the crowd, her voice ringing out. "Miss Collins, you seem to have more to say. What's the next question?" The words were an arrow, inviting yet menacing. Collins stood, her posture composed, microphone in hand like a sword. "Miss Leavitt, President Trump's administration seems overly friendly with certain foreign leaders, like Russia's Vladimir Putin. What is this diplomatic stance, and how does it ensure no risk to U.S. national security?" The room fell silent, reporters' eyes darting between the two women. Some from liberal outlets smirked, sensing a chance for Collins to score. But Leavitt didn't blink. "Miss Collins, thank you for bringing us to an important topic," she said, her voice even, each word measured. "President Trump's foreign policy is peace through strength. We build relationships with leaders to reduce global tensions, not to be best friends. With Russia, we've secured arms control agreements, lowering the risk of nuclear conflict. You call that friendly? I call it protecting the world." Murmurs spread. A few Fox News reporters nodded, scribbling quickly. Collins fired back, her voice sharper. "Miss Leavitt, you didn't answer directly. Close ties with Putin, especially after election interference allegations, raise concerns about national security. What is the administration doing to ensure the U.S. isn't manipulated?" The question emphasized Russia's threat, aiming to put Leavitt on the defensive. Leavitt leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "Miss Collins, you're trying to paint a dark picture, but I'll shed light," she replied, her voice resolute with a hint of mockery. "This administration has increased defense spending to $750 billion annually, the highest in history, to counter any threat, including Russia. We've imposed tough economic sanctions, cutting Russia's oil exports by 15%. Diplomacy isn't weakness, it's strategy. If you're worried about manipulation, look at the record. No major conflicts under President Trump. Do you want us to provoke a war to satisfy CNN?" Applause erupted from the conservative side, mixed with stunned murmurs. Collins gripped her microphone tighter, her eyes flashing with frustration. "Miss Leavitt, you're dodging the core issue," she replied, her voice slightly shaky. "Americans want to know how the administration ensures national security while working with leaders like Putin. Why not disclose the discussions for transparency?" Leavitt stood tall, her voice like a river, calm but brimming with power. "Transparency, Miss Collins? Diplomacy isn't a reality TV show. Disclosing every detail would destroy trust with allies and hand advantages to adversaries. Last year, a diplomatic leak forced NATO allies to delay a critical treaty, costing billions. This administration protects national security with action, not empty promises. We've bolstered intelligence networks, thwarting 17 Russian cyber attack plots, per the NSA. If you want transparency, ask about the measures protecting Americans, not what CNN wants to turn into headlines." Collins tried to interject, her voice urgent. "Miss Leavitt, you still haven't explained why closeness with Putin is necessary." But Leavitt raised her hand, her voice cold as steel. "Miss Collins, I've answered with data and facts. You've repeated the question a third time, but I'm not playing this loop. Who's next?" The interruption was a sword slash, halting Collins's efforts, leaving her frozen, microphone in hand, but speechless. A Breitbart reporter quickly raised a hand. "Miss Leavitt, is the campaign considering strengthening defense ties with Poland and Taiwan, especially as China and Russia grow closer?" Without glancing at notes, Leavitt responded as if she'd anticipated it. "We're not just considering, we're redesigning the diplomatic framework to protect allies with real presence and economic strength, something President Trump proved in his first term." A wave of applause rose, causing a few mainstream reporters to frown. The room's energy still revolved around the confrontation. Leavitt didn't just answer. She turned Collins's questions into a stage to display her strength, wielding facts as a weapon and words as a shield. The debate wasn't just about policy, it was a public takedown. Leavitt's youth didn't diminish her ferocity, navigating risky topics with ease. Collins, despite her experience, had underestimated her opponent, and the cost was evident in her flustered demeanor. But Collins wasn't done. She stood again, her movement sharp, her microphone like a final blade. "Miss Leavitt, President Trump's tariff policies are driving up the cost of goods, from food to electronics. Many American families are bearing the consequences. How does the administration justify these economic hardships, and what's the realistic plan to ease the impact?" The question was a spear, aimed at one of Trump's most controversial policies. Reporters looked up, sensing a moment where Leavitt could stumble. But she didn't. She nodded slightly, her voice resolute, echoing through the room. Americans aren't bearing the cost. They're waking up. Tariffs aren't a punishment. They're a declaration that America will no longer bow to manipulative economies and unfair deals. Under President Trump, we choose the right path, not the easy one. Leavitt paused, eyes piercing the camera, speaking to every American. Tariffs revive manufacturing and shield businesses. An extra dollar for American goods invests in our future. The room hushed. Leavitt turned an attack into patriotism. "Collins, thanks for raising the economy," Leavitt said, voice firm. Tariffs added 1.2 million jobs, per the Labor Department. Steel exports rose 25%, boosting Ohio factories. Harm? This is the American dream? Collins shot back, voice sharp. "Miss Leavitt, tariffs raised prices 8%, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Americans pay more for milk, phones. What's the plan for them?" Leavitt's gaze burned. "Miss Collins, tariffs saved $14 billion by lowering foreign prices, per the Commerce Department. Tax cuts added $3,200 to incomes. Why not report the 500,000 new agriculture jobs?" she retorted, voice laced with sarcasm. Conservative applause rang out. Collins pressed, desperate. "You're dodging. High prices hit consumers and small businesses. Will taxes drop?" Leavitt stepped forward, voice fierce. "Before tariffs, China took 2 million jobs. Now, 300,000 returned. Small businesses got $50 billion in loans, 80% growing. Tariffs protect us. Why does CNN back foreign firms over workers?" Collins tried again. "Why are Americans paying more?" Leavitt cut in, voice icy. "I've answered with facts. You've repeated thrice. Americans deserve solutions, not headlines. Next question." Applause erupted. Conservatives cheered. Liberals sat grim. Collins, microphone limp, showed defeat. Cameras caught Leavitt, unyielding, and Collins, fallen. Leavitt scanned the room. "This administration puts Americans first. Workers, families. We demand media honesty. Tell the story of our rise." Her words drew conservative nods. "Thank you," Leavitt said, voice resonant, stepping down confidently. Applause from Fox News, Newsmax followed. Collins sat, eyes on her notebook, still. An MSNBC colleague whispered support. Collins nodded, face taut, processing loss. An advisor, perhaps Kayleigh McEnany, met Leavitt. "Great job," she said. Leavitt smiled faintly, tired but satisfied. A phone buzz, possibly Trump. "Outstanding." She pocketed it, ready for more. Reporters left, whispering. "She's 27 and unstoppable," an OAN reporter said. Collins was outmatched, a Breitbart voice chuckled. A Washington Post reporter noted, "Aggressive, but she owns the room." Whispers spread to analyses. Leavitt exited, cameras trailing. She'd forged a lasting moment. The room emptied, battle's echo lingering. Collins, in the hallway, planned her comeback with a CNN producer, eyes determined. She'd lost a battle, not the war. Social media exploded. Leavitt crushed Collins, 27 and dominant, a post surged. Memes mocked Collins's scribbling. Facing Leavitt. Conservatives hailed her. Liberals called her sharp but divisive. Fox News said, "Leavitt taught CNN truth." Newsmax saw an icon. MSNBC backed Collins but admitted Leavitt's edge. Stefanik praised Leavitt. Schumer called her divisive, boosting her warrior image. Collins at CNN heard, "Leavitt was sharper." Resolute, she took notes, the defeat fueling her. Leavitt's shadow loomed, but Collins aimed higher. The Wall Street Journal lauded Leavitt's skill. The New York Times noted her narrative control. Leavitt was a phenomenon. The Leavitt-Collins clash mirrored America's divide. Leavitt, data-driven, led conservatives. Collins, defeated, vowed return. Their duel, a saga, showed a polarized world where facts and resolve shape voices. Leavitt proved youth, with preparation, wins. She inspired believers. Collins, resilient, showed failure fuels growth. Their clash taught standing firm with facts to mark a contentious world.